Scott, would you lead us in the pledge?
Sure.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So approval of the minutes. I'm assuming everybody had a chance to read the minutes from the previous meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the motion.
Thank you, Will. Is there a second? Thank you, Kim. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved unanimously. Board chair update. It is good to be back home. I will say I did miss all the people while I was gone, but I did not miss this white stuff that is outside that welcomed me home. For those of you who don't know, I spent the last month in Grenada, which is definitely the most undeveloped country I have been to. But one of the interesting parts about it is we stayed for so long, we got to know a lot of the people. And one of our favorite food stands was right across from the school. And so, of course, we would always get stuck in the traffic with the students walking back and forth, and we got to talking with several of them. And it was real interesting asking them what their favorite classes are. Their favorite classes, French and Spanish. So it's good to, see the students here, because that is one of their priorities. They really like their foreign language, and they all want to come to the United States. They want to come to New York City, and I couldn't change their minds, but it was very interesting. But nice to be back, just in time, for some exciting things happening. So I'm excited to be here and hope to see everybody tomorrow night here too. So, student reports. So let's start with Flathead, Hanaya. And by the way, Hanaya, congratulations on a wonderful wrestling season. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So we'll kind of starting off with here. Our Flathead girls and boys wrestling team just finished up their high school season a couple weeks ago, and we brought home 2 state titles, so one for the boys and one for the girls, and then that 2-time state championship title, so that was really exciting. And then we also had 2 individual state champions, Cindy Dow and then myself. And it was just overall a super cool experience. A really great way to finish off senior year, and I know the future is so exciting for both those programs here at Flathead, and I see how they grow. For swimming, Lily Milner earned 2 state championships, one in the 100-meter freestyle and 1 state championship in the 100-meter backstroke. So she did pretty phenomenal there. Our Health and Science Club, HOSA, at Flathead, we just recently had Keely Mahoney, Atlanta Waltman, and Tasha Dunbar featured on the KPAC teams for community awareness campaign. So they were promoting mental health awareness and doing outreach at partner middle schools. And there was a regional Montana Tech Science Fair where Dyson Linden and Keanu and then Kenna Anderson all participated in, and they earned the Best LA School due to all their awards. So that was very exciting as well. In our theater department, our Miss Marvel Mirror of Most Value production was a very big success this month, and it was a very
And then from Glacier High School, we have the International Language Program students. Welcome.
We'll get stuff first.
Okay, so I'm Allie Fernan, I'm a senior. That is good catch, that's Allie. I'm the vice president, and my name is Jordan Reiner, and I am French Club president.
And then I'm Maddie, I'm a junior at Glacier, and I'm a part of the Spanish club. I'm Kayla Peterson, I'm also a junior at Glacier High School. I'm in Spanish 3, and I'm also a part of.
Okay, so, the new in the French and Spanish world, in April, we are gearing up to get our exchange students here, which is really exciting, and then, hopefully, next, we get Spanish, exchange students. Awesome, because the more we can get immersed in language, the better it is for us. And then in less than 100 days, our students are going to get to go in Portugal, which is so exciting. They've been waiting for this for, so this is like just such a cool, across what they've been learning about for themselves.
Okay, and so in our dual enrollment classes, which is our AP French and Spanish classes, we have record numbers, which is really exciting. Like normally, AP classes are like 12, 15 people, and then in our AP French classes, I think there's quite a few more people than normal. It's pretty cool. We have 2 separate classes, so we have 7 people in our class, and then I think about 15, 20 in the class. And then in February, this was really fun. We got to do like the Wolfpack welcome. So we had a bunch of 8th graders come and get to experience all the clubs and activities that I could do. And so the French and Spanish clubs kind of threw like carnival for them, which is really cool. So some more activity highlights that we've had this year in the International Language Program is that our Spanish 3 classes got to work alongside the one of our science teachers, Mr. Young, and we did a science lab all in Spanish in order to show how excess CO2 can harm oceans. So our Spanish program, I think a couple weeks ago, the immersion night, and the Spanish program is also planning on doing one currently. And both programs offer an online cooking class. I actually attended a cooking class online with two of our Spanish teachers, and Profe. It was a lot of fun. We made cookies. We did like an online chat. We made cookies. It was a lot of fun. So a little bit about that immersion night, because it's right there. It's like 5 hours. Normally it's a little longer, but because this year with like COVID restrictions, conflicts with that. But it was 20 kids from Flathead and 20 kids from Glacier, and they all came together, and we just spoke French for 5 hours. We played games, we did crafts, we did a dance, we watched a movie. It was just a great opportunity to just more immersing yourself in the language, to be like a part of the community.
So this past week, we had a record number of GHS students testing their proficiency in their language. So all four of us tested with the Apple test, which is a test for proof of your applied literacy. It's really awesome because you can take that in the future and potentially get paid more at a job for better it. And that's just really amazing opportunity that we test for proficiency. Because like that's the purpose that we're in Spanish. And then the recipients of that, so who actually received, will be announced on April 25th at our International Language Association recognition ceremony. And we would love for you guys to be there. Yeah, and is that like are going to be welcome and like we're National Honor Society. We love to see you there. Thank you.
Okay, and the one thing I always forget to do is to pass on the Gyroscope Award. So, Scott, I believe you are the current holder.
I am the holder of the Gyroscope. And, I did a lot of thinking about who I should give this to, and I'm not going to go into what the Gyroscope means because, this person has done a lot for me on the board. Taught me a lot about what it means. And also, with the Gyroscope and great things on the inside that remains steady. In my first year on the board last year, had some crazy meetings. Remaining steadfast with where the board was going. Run some very good meetings. So I appreciate, Lance, everything that you have taught me about the board and being a good school board member and for leadership, especially last times we had, and just remain steady and any emotions, and that is where we needed to go.
Thanks, Scott. Although I have to say, Sue makes this look so much easier.
From where you're sitting.
So much easier, Sue.
There you go.
Okay, next on the agenda is the building update, Elrod Elementary. Mr. Hornby.
All right, thanks. So, first off, like every elementary school in town, we spend an awful lot of time in, PLCs, and we talk about reading groups and math groups, and I'll talk a little bit more about especially math this year. But really, I wanted to keep this more fun and just see some of the general things that we do to try to keep students excited about school. This has been, I think, this year actually is tougher than it was last year, with a lot of students who came back to us from who knows where, really, somewhere remote, somewhere, I'm not sure. But just kind of teaching them how to treat each other has been a big part of, I think, what we've done. And so we've had some emphasis this year. And so if you go to that second one there, the theme this year was every elementary school, you've probably seen this then, every elementary school had a theme of being champions. And so, because we're the Eagles, we're soaring to be champions. And so, you see, we had shirts that, oh, if you go back there. We had, you know, these are the shirts that every student got and every staff, and then in our office it says this, and then there are posters all over that talk about soaring to be champions, and the word SOAR stands for Show Outstanding Attitude and Respect. And so we've done a lot of these kinds of things just trying to be positive and, you know, how to support each other, and so I'll go into that a little more. Okay, so we have 2 champion boards. The first champion board is in the office, and that's, like, this is February's champion board, and next week we will do the March champions. And so teachers nominate them, and then they say a little something about each student, and then I send that image and what the teacher said to those parents. So if your son or daughter is on the champion board, then the parents see that. And so it's a nice email from the principal instead of the other phone calls that you might get. And then once they have been on the office champion board, then they move to the hallway champion board. And so at the end of the year, this will just be a mass of students, and it'll be fun to see how many students, you have been recognized during the course of the year. Okay? Another thing is the spirit stick. And anyway, so every Wednesday, so tomorrow I'll do this again, and this is an example of last week. My cinematographer has followed me closely behind. I recruited a 4th grader who videotapes me. Usually gets my whole body, sometimes cuts me off about here so they don't see my face, which we talked about how to frame me up, but you know, there's no good view of this, so, so last week had somebody else speaking, and I was just in the Morty suit, and the reason why we called, we bought that last year, we called him Morty because Morton J. Elrod is who the school is named after, so we have Morty the mascot. Anyway, so the spirit stick is every Wednesday, I come on the screens in all the classrooms, and we acknowledge a class who has accomplished some goal that we set the week before. And that's, you know, something in specials or something on the playground, in the hallways, some, you know, a common area a lot of times, lunch. And so we, you know, try to do a good job of spreading the wealth on that, but, you know, like one class has won it 4 times already, but they really do such a great job, we just keep acknowledging. Okay, so that's spirit stick. We have these kind of scattered all around the building. There's 9 of these. I painted these eagle heads around the building, and then we put up a little saying underneath each of them, and just another reminder. And a lot of times, like, one of them just simply says smile, and it's where the yellow eagle is. And so if a student is, you know, having a rough day and he's been sent to the office, I say, hey, would you go find the yellow eagle and then come back and tell me what it says? And then they'll come back and they're like sheepish, but it's a smile. You know, yeah. I mean, we're not asking huge things of you. We want you to take care of others. Or, you know, it's or another aspect of this is that there's 9 of them, so a teacher might say, you look like you need to walk the eagles. And then they go and they walk the hall, you know, and they might say, homeless under the blue eagle, or something like that. So we have those up around the building. A lot of, I mean, we just try to do a lot of things that would be positive and encouraging to kids. And then we do have some bragging points here. And you can kind of run down this list, but I'm going to hit number 3 there, the bridges map. That is, as you know, I was at Elrod, many of you know this anyways, I was at Elrod for a number of years, and then I went to KMS. Now I'm back at Elrod. And math support has always been a difficult thing to really accomplish. I remember a long time ago we we were teaching 120 minutes of math. And it was when we had everyday math, and it was brutal. It was so much of the time was just spent on that one curriculum. Now we luckily have a program that really takes kids through a specific skill. And so one week the student might need bridges support, and the next week they don't, and somebody else does. And so we're constantly looking at how we can help those students and improve their math skills. And so the bridge has been a huge plus for us this year, so thanks for that. We use Seesaw and Google Classroom. I know just about everybody does in the district, but we've been using Seesaw all the way through third grade, and I think that's important for us to continue, because it's a really easy communication tool. And parents, I mean, I get to see the report that says how many parents are responding to Seesaw messages, and it's really impressive, the continual communication between home and school. I also want to say this one about, we don't really hear, that's not my job at Elrod, and I appreciate that staff. I don't know what else to say about that, except like an example would be, if we need, you've probably heard this, that there haven't been, or there have been some times with limited subs. And we have, people say, well, just send me outside, I'll go do the playground, and I'll cover here and there. And so I think it's important to note that, we have a lot of teachers doing beyond what they usually do. They're just willing to work hard and do whatever it takes. And I don't know if you've heard a lot about the wheel so far, but this is a really impressive thing that I can't take much credit for, because it was in the works before I moved back from KMS. But it's just a professional development. Have you guys heard of it? The wheel, the professional development wheel. It's just a way that we teach our own. So teachers volunteer to share some knowledge that they have, and it's really well structured. It's great professional development. So really proud of that. Proud of all those things. But anyways, I chose this picture for a reason, because I knew Greg would be here. Because the first thing on my list is new windows. And wouldn't this building look nicer if those were nice new windows? So I know that this is in the works, and I think it's, you think of Elrod and the yellow drive it just is, it's outlived its life, and it's, hopefully we can move forward and improve the appearance of this building, because all these great things, fun things going on inside, then you drive by and you see, it doesn't look very good on a couple sides of the building. The front looks great. But, so new windows, we're working on a STEAM room. Instead of, we had makerspace, we're gonna have an art corner, a math corner, and a science corner. And we will have that completely up and running for next year, but we're working on all the details and supplying it and a system for people to share it. So that's exciting. I don't know if you know, October 11th, we had a steam leak. So speaking of steam, we'll go down to the steam. We had a steam leak that destroyed about, I can't remember, it's about $19,000 worth of books and about $20,000 worth of furniture. And right now, I'm kind of going back and forth with the insurance company, because they've had some shift in their who's supporting, who's reviewing our case. And so it was October 11th, and we still haven't restored the library, but that's another big project for us right now. And then these kinds of things, these two here are, you've been talking a lot about the transformational learning, and tomorrow night as well, and I'll do it on Thursday night with, so Tracy Ketchum and I will do a combined Elrod Peterson parent night, where we'll take their feedback as we plan. These are just some ideas that Elrod is really wanting to emphasize, and really they don't take extra funds to do, so these are the things that we want to work towards for next fall. And this one just means like our 4th and 5th grade teachers are going to schedule so that it's more like a middle school style schedule, where they will specialize in either reading, writing, math, and then students will rotate between those 3 teachers, which is a good preparation for them then moving on to the middle school. And then this is the final thing, we had a fundraiser that ended today. We, you know, we go through companies, they take 50%, you know, this is always a little frustrating, but, we also know that they do a lot of the legwork, and then they bring us this event in April. And, our goal is to get new playground equipment, which again involves Greg, and, thanks, Greg. And so we actually raised, over $30,000, which is amazing for our little school. And so we'll keep over $15,000 of it. Okay, so next one just is for you, if you have questions about LRUD. I was talking fast, but anyway, I didn't want to keep you 2 minutes longer.
Jeff, have you had any problems with the sewer in the last 2 years?
Good question. You know, actually, so maintenance has been there, and they've, repaired some of those lines. I don't know how what you would say about that, but looks like they're bigger than they were before, so I think things have been, fixed for now.
We corrected.
Yeah, corrected it, yes.
Very good.
Just so you know,
Sinkhole.
there used to be a tank, flush tank, back of a
Mhm.
toilet that ran continuously. Sure,
Okay.
all that out, and when we did that process, drain lines. Yeah, they wouldn't
Yeah,
great,
okay.
let's just leave that. Cut all of that out, we put 3 new urinals in,
Yeah.
that no longer required this gravity-fed tank that ran 24/7, so you can actually. Yes, we did some stuff out there.
Yeah, appreciate it. I know I talked pretty fast, so sorry. Anything else? Yeah.
So what are your plans for the playground equipment?
All right, so here's how we're gonna do the playground equipment. So last year with, some of the fundraiser money, I put a TV up in the lunchroom, and we're trying to really make that old gym into a lunchroom. So taking down all the basketball hoops, we still have 2 to go, that involves Greg again. And windows, we know, looking for those. And on that TV, we got new tables last year, that was nice, that was a surprise too. But on that TV, I've been showing some, options for playground equipment. And, so then on Friday, every student in the building will vote on what style of playground equipment that I have, I think, A through H options. And they're all things within that budget that we just raised. And they will vote, and then we'll focus just on that style, and then get something that fits in that area. Again, I'll talk to Greg. He's involved a lot with LRUD here now. And we'll get something that fits in the space that we're looking at.
Is it replacing current equipment?
The idea is yes, because there is an old, has everybody seen the LRUD playground? Okay, there's an old green swing set that really should go. It's, you know, it's leaning, kids, you know, on the weekend, kids come by and they throw the swings and wrap them up over the top, so I have to get out the ladder and get those swings back down, every so often, and so that's a little frustrating. But that green swing set probably needs to go, and then just put something else in there.
Any other questions?
Oh. Great, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, personnel action items. Tracy.
I just want to say, before we jump into these, that if you've never seen Jeff Hornby in action when dealing with students, magical. able to see him one time, the very first, I didn't really know him very well, and I was meeting with Trig, and he was talking to a kid in middle school, disciplining him. I just wish that I had him in my ear at all times. I'd never be as amazing as he is as a parent. Oh, sorry.
We have people online.
But he's just amazing in what he does and how he works with kids. And so, you really are just amazing principal, so really good with kids. I wanted to put that plug in. Anyway, so this is the standard report that I bring forward every board meeting. Is there any questions related to the activity that we have on this?
No questions, comments?
You know, I just had a comment. We have a couple of educators on here who have been with the district for a number of years, who have had a huge impact on a lot of us. I want to say thank you to them.
Thirty-two years, and 25.
I think this year is going to be a very special retirement year when we have that celebration. So, you guys can come. We have a lot of people mean a lot to the district.
So, I don't see any public here for comments. So is somebody comfortable making a motion?
I move to approve the personnel action items as presented.
Thank you, Kim. Is there a second? Thank you, Scott. You guys could arm wrestle. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the personnel action items. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. The next thing on the list is non-renewal of classified and certified staff, limited duration contracts, elementary trustees only.
So these, for our new board members, these are one-year only contracts. We're required to bring them forward to the board every year. So they expire at the end of the year, so we bring them forward so that you are aware of them. They were only hired for a limited duration. This is a process that we do every year.
And just to clarify, Tracy, this is for elementary only. The second item that involves district-wide. So on this list, you have some elementary people listed and some high school people. So the board's just approving the elementary side of this, and then the high school side will be a second motion.
We apologize. It's the same list for both motions.
Any questions, comments?
Also keep in mind that some of these positions, there may be a need for one-year only next year. Again, we will not make that decision until we have our budget a little bit more refined, but you may see these people either being hired in a permanent position coming forward, or there may be a need for a one-year only as well. So sometimes we hire one-year only multiple years. We try not to do that for more than 3 years. Long-term needs.
Questions, comments? Any public comment? Elementary trustee want to make a motion?
I'd move to approve the non-renewal of the classified and certified elementary contracts as presented.
Thank you, Lance. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Kim. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next on the agenda, non-renewal of classified and certified staff, limited duration contracts district-wide.
And the same list as this for everyone to vote on.
Any questions? Public comment? Motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Lance. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Scott. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Next up is KMS Assistant Principal Activities Director hire.
Sue, I need to, ask the board to table this for the time being. The process hasn't fully concluded yet.
Sure.
I'll make the motion that we table this item until further notice.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second? Diane, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we table this item. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next, Assistant Principal Instructional Coach.
And I'll, take this one and introduce it and ask Micah to jump in. We've worked in collaboration on this one. So we started looking at, the needs of the Edgerton School early in the year, and Edgerton has our highest elementary student population, and they also have some special programs at that school, so they really have a high need for support. And trying to stay within our current FTE to keep our salaries and our staffing the same, we got creative and are making this recommendation to take one of the instructional coach positions across the district and split that time, so they would have 0.5 FTE, half of their day or half of their time would be as an assistant principal, and the other half of their time would be as an instructional coach. And then from one of our smaller elementary schools, we would shift some time from the instructional coach at that building to help out and support at Edgerton. So the total at Edgerton would be 0.8 instructional coach plus the 0.5 of an assistant principal. And we've worked this through with the principal group, and Mr. Hornby's in the room. He was part of the conversation because the 0.5 instructional coach may come from his building, and it may also come from Russell. We're going to make that determination after we know who the hire is and then who the instructional coaches are at those other buildings. And then the attachment here is a detailed budget analysis by our former business manager. They just tend to resist the urge to compile some numbers, but we're predicting the difference. That's impossible to say exact number because there'll be multiple options for different candidates and where they would land on the salary schedule. But it's been pretty accurately predicted that the low number would be about 3,800 and the high number would be about close to 14,000. I trust that analysis from that former business manager.
Can we question that?
You can.
Any questions? No public comment that I'm seeing? Be comfortable making a motion?
Sue, I'd like to make a motion for this goal, to approve a 0.5 FTA instructional coach and a 0.5 FTA assistant principal as presented.
Thank you, Kim. Is there a second? Thank you, Diane. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next on the agenda, Assistant Superintendent hiring timeline.
Thanks, Sue. On the document that's presented in front of you, you see a little timeline there of when the position was opened and when the position will conclude. So February 23rd to hopefully April 12th, we would bring this position forward to the board for hire. So you know, it's really a 10-week process by the time you give candidates an opportunity to submit application, and then the process to screen and offer interviews, and making it a timeline that's realistic for people who maybe would be traveling to make those kind of arrangements. I am facilitating the process, and then have been working to select the interview team. And you can see we have a mix of building administrators, central office representatives, faculty, and then trustees. And on there, just full disclosure, I was trying to create an opportunity for a trustee who has not been part of the process before to do that. I had asked Will, he got back to me today and said, and then I asked Heather, and she's like, let me think about it. And but I was like, great, I'm gonna put her name on here. And then she's like, can't make that work. So I am seeking one more trustee to be a part of that process, but would gladly entertain discussions after the meeting with anybody else that would like to be a part of the process. So, at the present time, you know, we always schedule for at least 3 candidates, and then we adjust if it looks like through the screening process we need to offer interviews to additional candidates. So, and there's already 5 in the hopper. So, getting some looks. Any questions on that process or timeline? Great.
Okay, next on the agenda, Business Department, and I just want to say welcome to Denise. I know I visited with her earlier, but this is my first meeting with her, so thank you for joining us. Thank you. So, preliminary budget update.
Later, if you want to.
Thank you. Okay. Hi, so after the February enrollment count is submitted to the Office of Public Education, then they turn around and compute, general fund budget, information for school districts. They publish that on March 1st of every year. So I just wanted to give you an update because I have that information, and I know you're going to be considering next year's budget. You're probably also going to be considering a levy election, and so I just wanted to give you that information. So we start out, hopefully you can see all this. This is from a spreadsheet that the OTI provides to school districts to make these calculations, and I really like this one because it automatically fills in a lot of the numbers, and it also provides a comparison from the previous year. So we start out with A&D, which stands for average number belonging, and it's based on the average of those 2 enrollment counts, and then it's inflated a bit. So when you look at A&D, know that that's more than the actual number of enrollments that you have. It's an inflated number, slightly. 187 over 80, the multiplier for it. So for the 2023 budget, you're looking at 3,253 A&D, which is a combination of your elementary and your middle school students. And then for the high school, we're looking at 3,098 A&D. Okay, here's the increase, so 111 at the elementary district and 64 at the high school, and then we get this nice little percentage increase as well. Okay. Down here in this section, I teach budgets to school business officials, and I always try to start with the base budget, which is the minimum budget that school districts all over the state have to adopt. You always have to go for this minimum budget, but of course, we always need more. So there's limits to that, how much you can adopt on the high end. So I always tell them, calculate the highest budget you're allowed to have, because then it helps you with the understand the other numbers. So the general fund funding formula is very complex, and it is based on probably 8 different components. So we go through these calculations, and we have the base budget and then a maximum budget. Then
then we have this highest budget, and that's for, how to explain it, that it's, you get the highest of the maximum budget as calculated, or, the previous year's adopted budget, plus any increases in those different funding components. And for some school districts, that's a higher number. For us, it's the same number, so it's easier to understand, but, this could potentially be a higher number than maximum budget for some districts. Okay? Anyway, so this section up here is for the elementary. The highest budget you can have is this $23 million for the elementary. It's a $1.2 million increase. You do have to support the distance between the base budget and the highest budget with levy. Okay, and we'll look at that in just a minute. At the high school level, we've got a base budget of $20.5 million. And the maximum, the base budget is $20.5 million. The maximum budget is $25.4 million. So you can see those increases here. All right. So, okay, with the elementary, I put in a proposed budget for fiscal year 23 that is equal to the highest budget without having to go to the voters to approve an increase in that over base levy. So that's the number that you see there, that $22,798,336. That's the highest budget that you can have without having a levy election. There is a highest budget with a vote, which is equal to that highest budget on the other page. The difference then, if you were to run a levy election to get to the highest budget you're allowed to have, your levy would be for $232,859. And you had a levy election last year that you passed. And so that's factored into these numbers. And that's at the elementary level, that's K through 8. That's your elementary and middle school are under that budget. You can see the differences from last year. So you can look at your adopted budget and your limits there. Okay. Now the legislature approved a 2.57% increase in all of the funding components. That's part of what's driving these increases in the limits. And also your increases in the A&D are probably the two main things that are driving these increases in the budget. High school, I did the same thing, highest budget without a vote. That's this $23,223,000, so that represents an $894,000 increase from the previous year's adopted budget. If you were to go to the highest budget you're allowed to have, you would have to run a levy election for a little over $2.2 million. So that's your room between the levies you've already have passed and the highest budget you're allowed to have. This is just the elementary fund budget per A&D calculation that they have on this spreadsheet. Another thing that I like, so you can see the percentage increases here. And next. This looks at mills. Okay, so your mill is equal to 0.001 of your taxable value. So you just divide your taxable value by 1,000 to get the value of the mill, and then you take the amount of money you need to raise, which would be your over base levy in terms of levy elections, to get the number of mills that you are going to assess to your taxpayer. Okay, so this just compares the mills from one year to the next. You see an increase in the elementary, quite a big increase there. That's because last year, you see an increase in the overbase mills. And the reason for that is because you passed that levy last year, but you didn't impose it. Not sure why, maybe it was to even out total mills across the board, I'm not sure, but because I'm assuming you're going to levy it this year. That's why there's a big increase there. And then at the high school level, and I'm mainly looking at over-base mills because I didn't factor in that you'd run it's gonna keep the same, over-base levy dollars as the year before, so we see no increase. That's just a comparison of the number of mills. And then the last sheet I have on here is probably more than you'll ever want to know. But this is how, so when we do these classes, we talk about the expenditure budget limits, and then we start talking about how those budgets are funded. And that's what this sheet kind of does. It tells you the different funding sources for the general fund. So some of this might seem familiar to you. Direct state aid is the basic entitlement and the per A and B entitlement. It's a percentage of that, 44.7% in your base budget. That's funded by the state. This is actual money we get from the state. Special education allowable costs, state guaranteed tax-based aid is money from the state that helps school districts with the base levy. Remember, we said there's a base budget, it's the minimum you have to adopt. There's state funding that funds that base budget, but then the rest of it has to be funded by the local taxpayers. And if your school district's taxable value is basically lower than the statewide average, it's not that simple, but there's this big one calculation. But if your taxable value is lower than the statewide average, then we qualify for guaranteed tax-based aid, and that's to help our local taxpayers meet that required levy to support the base budget. That's what that is. Then we have the other funding components. One you probably heard about more than others is the quality educator payment, and that's based on your licensed professionals in the district. We report those on the annual teams report, and then we get $33.85 this year. I think that's the rate for this year. That's between $3,000 and $4,000 per FTE. That's that one. So looking at here's where your taxes come in, and so the total of it is basically answers the question, where is the money coming from to support that expenditure budget that we just talked about. Okay. That's all I have. Have any questions?
You're awesome. Now we just have to get used to looking at different tables. We can do it though, Denise, don't worry. Okay, next on the agenda, Flathead High School, Nevco shop clock scoreboard quotes.
Yep, and so what you see in front of you are two quotes, and we had to actually phone a friend, Mr. Wilson, during the finance meeting to try and understand why the two quotes. And the reason is the controllers that we currently have in the existing scoreboards, we're not sure which one of the scoreboards is the correct one. He hasn't heard back from the vendor yet. And so one costs a little bit more, but whatever one we purchase needs to sync with everything else that we're already using. Otherwise, that could be impossible to try and run two scoreboards on different controllers at the same time. So these are, it's a purchase for shot clocks and the necessary equipment with the receivers for that, and also the purchase of an 8-foot by 3-foot by 8-inch deep scoreboard for one corner of the gymnasium. And these funds would come out of the Legends advertising revenue account and activity accounts at Flathead High School.
Questions from the board? Any public comment? You comfortable making a motion? Thank you, Will. Is there a second? Thank you, Diane. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next on the agenda, Glacier High School, American Electric Sound and Lighting.
Yeah, so this, was something that the board had approved earlier this year, for upgrading the soundboard and the lighting equipment in the performance hall at Glacier High School. And that was approved, and this is the bill for the electrical service that was needed to complete the project. And so, because it's over $10,000, I'm asking the board to approve paying the bill.
Any questions? Any public comment? Any motion?
We approve the bill.
Thank you, Diane. Is there a second? Thank you, Kim. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Okay, next, E-rate Category 2.
I'm just looking over my shoulder for Eric, because 95% of this stuff I really don't understand. But it was discussed at Finance Committee, and there are a couple of proposals in front of you, and these are for E-rate match, and then it looks like there are some switches and some different infrastructure type components that we need for our connectivity in Kalispell Public Schools. How's that for a summary?
Yeah, Mike, and I would add to it that this was fully vetted at the Finance Committee last Friday, and
And then you want me to talk about the cash box? So that one I do know. So, well, I learned it. This is a server that will take frequently hit upon sites, like, for example, the school district's website. I go to it every day for information or other things. And rather than pushing out that request for information out to the World Wide Web, it's actually stored on a server locally, and you don't know the difference of whether you're just out there in the www or if you are just accessing through the cache box. So it decreases the amount of traffic and increases the amount of bandwidth we have for our internet services in school districts.
Any other questions?
Who else? High Point. I don't.
What was the question, Will?
I was just wondering if there were other school districts with a high servicing and.
Yeah, I don't know if that was answered.
Any other questions? Somebody comfortable making a motion?
Move approval of the E-rate Category 2 as presented.
Thank you, Jack. Is there a second? Thank you, Heather. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next up is the phone system upgrade.
I was looking over. But I can fill in a little bit. So there's two parts to the phone system upgrade. One is upgrading the phones at Glacier High School. Those are original to the building, and we've been doing some upgrades throughout the district over the years. And They provide, the upgrade that we're doing will provide another access point for teachers, administrators, whomever's in the building, to make people aware if there's some sort of a security type issue within the building. So kind of a hot button that you can use to contact the front office and some different things like that. So that's part of it. That's about $12,290. And then there's a communication upgrade, which we talked about, and, you know, looking at the documentation that Jason provided on this, to kind of go back in and completely redo our phone system, it would cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $600,000 to $800,000. But this is an upgrade to the current system for about $48,000. And we're looking at, Matt, if you go to, there's a different document, it's the last one with the funding sources, with the dollar amounts. Working with Denise, it looks like those would be payable out of the building reserve fund, elementary and high school. Any questions on that? Eric's back.
No questions? Anybody comfortable making a motion?
Move to approve the phone system upgrades as presented.
Thank you, Jack. Is there a second? Thank you, Kim. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next on the list, contracts. Mountain Max 5-year contract.
So we were up this year for our, this is our building-to-building connectivity and our internet. Currently, we have a gigabyte connection to each campus and on instructional site, and then 1.8 gigabytes of internet. This new contract gives us 10 gig at both high schools, the 1 gig everywhere else, and then also gives us 5 gig of internet, so a little over double. And it came in at about just shy of around $70,000 a year in savings. The big piece of the savings is that as part of our other contracts, we have been paying out the original construction for the fiber connectivity to each campus. So we've now paid that off everywhere other than Rankin. And then this also includes construction for fiber to the new transportation facility. Be a 5-year contract. So it sets us up really well for the future, with the ability to upgrade other campuses up to that 10 gig if we need to. And also will help offset some of the costs with the phone system. We'll have some annual expenses as part of that project, and so this offsets that and still leaves savings for phones.
Did you guys talk about this at finance?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say 10 gigs for the high school, does that mean?
In each.
Any other questions or comments? Any public comments? Be comfortable making a motion?
You all move that we approve the Mountain Max.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second? Thank you, Will. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next, window replacement.
Yep, you're gonna pay attention?
Yeah.
So, this has been a labor of love for me for the past year. It actually started in February of last year. Started talking about, upgrading Did an RFP in May of last year, sent it out, and got 0 responses. So we took it upon ourselves to do a little door knocking and asking some people if they were willing to do it. We twisted a couple arms, and so Valley Glass was the only contractor that. So we went around, looked at, there were 7 sites total, but there's only 6 on this because Hedges is a circle building, and we do with that. So there is 6 buildings, which is Elrod, Edgerton, Russell, Peterson, more windows at KMS, and then the which the amount of drive it that Jeff so graciously gave me a picture of. And what that basically is like a foam insulation that was put over the windows to make it more energy efficient, but birds really love it. It just holds it, build nests in it. Horrible. Talked to Denise about this, who is wealth of information, and discovered that if we were to do this project with ESSER 3 funds, we'd have to have it done by September 2024. I talked to Dennis Mayhew from Valley Glass and said, here's your deadline, can you meet this? Before I take it forward, he said, well, I guess we have to. So it's a significant amount of money. It's around $1.7 million for 6 sites. We would start with Edgerton. Elrod, excuse me. I have Edgerton in my brain. So we would start with Elrod just because Jeff's building has been completely remodeled except for the windows, pretty much. So that would be my starting point. And then we would just determine how it would go.
So it's not to get Jeff off your back.
Jeff is a pain. I mean, it's just every 2 days, he has a fundraiser, he has something, a TV he needs hung in his cafeteria or whatever, so. But I'm super excited about this. There's some nuances behind this, why we had to get it here as quickly as we could. So, I would really appreciate it if forward with this. It's gonna be a huge, the district is just, it's not only is it a cosmetic thing, and I get it that, the windows are not, we're not gonna recoup our costs for this. Energy efficient, obviously, but $100,000 again. They don't have the film in them anymore, like, look at it, Edgerton, where the film's peeling off the windows inside, so.
Oh, so there's nothing wrong with the windows at Elrod then?
Except they're single pane wood, and, the steam leak in the library caused them to, there's some issues out there, plus the drive it. Yeah. And I did do a pretty good walk with Valley Glass and the demo contractors, especially in the MP rooms where there was the colored block windows that were put in, the colored glass windows that or maybe energy efficient. Those are all coming out. Jeff's got 4 windows in your MP room, so those will come out and be like 4 separate windows. Well, it won't be separate, but it'll be 4. And we have a really good understanding of what we want. This is going to be a 3-year project, and hopefully pushing them to be. Edgerton is actually going to be probably the faster one, even though it has, although there's less. Actually, Elrod and Flathead is going to be. I'm super excited about this. Project to get off the ground.
And just to add a little more, to the conversations, if there are questions for the board, when we received all of our ESSER funding, this was one of the things that we had looked at. And there's a couple of strategies that we could do this with. One would be to supplant current costs, and then at the end of the year, you transfer money into the interlocal agreement, then you use the interlocal agreement to pay for the fund, or to pay for the windows. But that's just an extra step from a financial and accounting perspective. These are allowable costs within ESSER to address ventilation and other maintenance needs. Some districts are, buying HVAC systems and different things. I think the other thing that we talked about, and we knew that the price tag on this would be big, was, another potential way to do this would be to ask our voters to approve a building reserve levy, creating another burden on the taxpayers when we have a funding source that could actually allow this to happen. And in ESSER 3, that $1.7 million represents about 17% of the total amount that we have available to us. So that is to just give a little more context to the discussions that we've had around this as we move forward. So would be glad to let Greg entertain any questions.
One other thing I want to add too is I did, two occasions, I did get the general contractors and the contractor together to make sure we're all on the same page, all have an understanding of what the job entails, timelines, the constraints, anything that forward, if there was something that could be a change order possibility. Pretty confident that all in. Not saying we're not going to run into something in the building because it's all wood frame windows that we might have to do. That's something that we could probably take on internally and stuff like that. I don't see any huge costs on that. Question about this. Moving pieces that we're going to do this, we need to do it.
And Denise, you're confident this is an acceptable use of the ESSER funds? Any questions?
I had a pretty there'll be some window. Not that there's not building, if you look at
Any further questions? Any public comment? Anybody comfortable making a motion?
Move approval of the window replacement project as presented.
Thank you, Jack. Is there a second? Thank you, Heather. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
oh,
Next.
Jeff, you don't want to stay till the end?
I'm good. Got his windows. Next, consent agenda, district-wide. Bus driver certification, monthly claims, and payrolls. Routine. Any questions? Thank you, Diane. Is there a second? Thank you, Kim. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Trustee reports. Let's start over with Will.
I have nothing to report.
I got to go on a nice tour today at Rankin. We got to see a great building. I had never been in there, and we had a great tour today. But my favorite part of my update right now is I got to go to KMS's performance of Frozen on Thursday. Opening night. It was amazing. These kids put on such a fantastic performance. I was blown away. I've been blown away watching the high school kids, but the middle schoolers, they put on a great performance. Sarah's son was in the performance, and he was by far my favorite. He was Olaf. But I was just so proud of them. They did such a great job, and you could just see they put their heart and soul into that performance, and they were amazing.
Scott?
Nothing.
Lance?
No report.
No report.
Well, I have a report. I just wanted, everyone to know that next week, I have a meeting up in Whitefish, MTSBA, the Board of Directors are meeting, and we will be talking about, the resolutions, and one of them is the one that we voted on in January about, making the tax credits a little more equitable between the school districts. And it's pretty exciting because not only did we approve that, but the Whitefish School District, the Columbia Falls School District, and the West Valley School District also signed off on our resolution. So that's something that we will be talking about next week. So I am pretty excited about that. That's all I have. So administrator reports.
Let's start with Denise. You
I
don't
was
have to.
looking, what,
Oh, that was right.
red means on? Okay, great. I was looking at the next steps for the ESER three, because we have to amend the budget. So, preliminary budgets, and then one thing I need to work up for you before your next meeting is the notice of intent to increase non-voted levies. That's a required, resolution, and then it has to be published in the paper, so I'll have that information for you and ask you to adopt those resolutions at the next meeting. I am working on the fiscal year 21 audit report and the management discussion and analysis, which is the district's responsibility, and that's been quite a task because I wasn't here. And so, but I am putting those numbers together. Also just, very happy to be here. I'm on week 3 and, just getting to know all the staff and attending all the meetings and, having a great time. So thank you for hiring me.
Thank you.
We've had some exciting times with the K-8 staff, specifically with the K-5 staff. The building level staffs have gotten together and they've gone through some of the transformational learning agenda topics that we've shared with the curriculum committee. And those topics in those work sessions have gone really well. And then last week, March 2nd, we were able to pull all of the K-5 staff together, certified and classified staff, and go through some similar activities and just share some of the ideas from across the district. And so it's fun to see just that energy in the room. And then we have the parent listening sessions that are associated with that starting Thursday night will be the first one at Peterson and Elrod, and then next week on the 16th will be the rest of them. So it'll be Edgerton and Russell together, Rankin and Hedges together, and then the separate one at KMS. We're excited to see what our parents have to say. And I just want to give a shout out to the principals that have been facilitating all of that. They've just done a really great job of first just being excited, thinking big, but then also stepping back and letting their staff share. And so not guiding that in the sense of what the principals want to see, but just authentically listening to their staff and then gathering all that information. Just a really great group of principals. And then next Wednesday, we'll also be hosting an Indian Education for All district-wide training. And we have 2 trainers coming from Great Falls, and they're going to be presenting, and then we're teaming with an organization out of Bozeman that does some of this. It's Southwest, used to be Southwest, but they just changed their name and everything there. But anyway, we're facilitating that training, and this has been something that's been in the works from the beginning of the year. We applied for a grant through OPI. We've gone through a couple different activities, and this is one of the bigger activities. So excited to see it happening. And then something that we continue to work on is enrollment projections for next year. I really didn't understand how entangled the enrollment is here, so we started looking at this a couple months ago, and I thought it would be an issue that'd be easily resolved through a couple meetings with principals. Turns out it's a little bit more complicated than that. In a nutshell, we have, our school population continues to grow. We've added early K, which has taken up some spaces inside of classrooms or inside of schools. And then we have just the way growth happens, you have disproportionate growth in different elementary districts, and it's our desire to keep as many elementary students in their home district as possible. So you end up with some unique scenarios where there might be a new development happening in one of the elementary districts, and so it puts more pressure on, and it's not easy to just move more sections of a different grade level to that school. So we're considering multiple approaches, but one of the things that I think will happen is we'll take a 2-school approach, and we'll partner schools by proximity to each other. So if we do move students because of an overflow or an overcrowding in one school, they'll just move to the next nearest geographical location, unless a parent requests to be somewhere else. So we'll still honor those normal processes. But I think that that'll allow us to be balanced in classrooms so that you don't end up with an overcrowding in one classroom in 2nd grade at Edgerton, and then you're under by 8 at Russell, something like that. So that's the intent, is to balance out those classes. But I do see a need for this to be a continual conversation. That's why I'm bringing it up, because we're doing this to try to get balanced classrooms, but our need for classroom spaces is a current need, and we're seeing numbers need to go up.
Just a few things to report. A couple weeks ago, we got a letter from Certainty Siding that our claim for that we submitted for Glacier High School siding project was denied, and that the decision was final. And so I read through the list of the reasons why it could be denied, and there was things like, well, maybe you live in Canada. We couldn't verify that the siding was actually Certainty's product. So I reached out to the attorney that's been working on it on our behalf and said, hey, can you call him? I don't think this is right. And he said, well, you need to verify, because one document that was submitted originally when Glacier was designed, we maybe were going to put steel siding on it, and so they just assumed that the one document, and it was just meant to show the square footage of the siding area. And then they said that the sample that they had, they couldn't verify that it was Certainty's product. So I had Greg go take a video of himself pulling off a chunk of siding off of Glacier High School, and we mailed them a 2-foot section with the Certainty trademark knot, and we got a letter today saying that our claim was approved. We don't know how much, and the attorneys are going to get a pretty good chunk of it, but at least we've got something in that. So that was positive. Also got a letter from county commissioners, and they have respectfully denied our request to purchase the ag ed land. We've got about 1.5 years into that process with a lot of time and energy involved with multiple parties for that. But they did say they're committed to supporting ag education in the valley and would continue to renew our lease that we have with that. So that was a little bit of a disappointment. And then, this last week, I got an opportunity to, be a part of a, panel discussion for Leadership Flathead, which was great. Got to talk about schools and share with a group of up-and-coming leaders in our community, how, great our schools are and, how important it is when it comes to voting, for school board trustees and legislators who support public education, if they appreciate what we do. So that was good. And then next week, Tuesday, I'm one of the presenters for the Chamber Luncheon. That's usually somewhere around 300-400 people, and I get to present on transformational learning. So it'll be my first big foray into the public domain on having that conversation, but also wanted to recognize the articles that Hillary did in the Daily Interlake on transformational learning and our climate surveys. So I think those are all positive things, and as we continue to move forward, and I'm looking forward to our strategic planning process starting up again tomorrow with Darlene, and so that's my update.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And that leads into our safe return to schools and continuity of service plan.
No update on that plan right now. We're still waiting for verification from OPI that everything we've submitted with our ESSER funding and how we've spent things and what allowable categories that is given the approval. Yep, you did it. So no update there. And then on COVID update, year to date, we've had 191 positive cases, confirmed positive cases with our staff. And we're, as of tonight, when I looked it up, we have 0 confirmed staff positives. And on the student side, we've had 666 students year to date, and we're sitting at 0 right now. So, and I get the daily situation report from the county health department. Numbers continue to dwindle countywide. I think there were only 14 new cases in the valley today. So things are looking up.
Very nice. It's encouraging to see that improvement. Public comment. This is the time for comment on public matters that are not on the main agenda. Members of the audience are encouraged to briefly address the trustees on an issue that is not on the agenda, and I will seek comments from the audience on significant items as they occur. Public matters do not include any pending legal matters, private personnel issues, or private student issues. Please do not attempt to address such issues at this time, or you will be ruled out of order. Please note that individuals will be given 3 minutes of public comment, and these should be comments and not questions. Is there any public comment at this time? That concludes our agenda. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? Oh, before we do that, I think you should all take a look at the meeting notices coming up, because I think the regular board business, or the board work session on the 29th is after spring break, which is a little different. So make a note of that our next meeting is not during spring break, it's the week after. Okay. Who wants to make the motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Kim moved, Lance seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.